Mark used to believe that loyalty meant something. He used to believe that hard work, sacrifice, and devotion would be rewarded, especially by family. But betrayal has a funny way of showing you how wrong you can be. From the time Mark was old enough to count change at the register, he was part of the family business. Summers, weekends, late evenings after school, while other kids played or went on vacations, Mark was stocking shelves, learning the books, helping smooth over customer complaints. It wasn't a question of choice, it was understood. One day, this would all be yours. His father had said it with a proud clap on the back when Mark fixed the ancient cash register for the first time. His mother had whispered it with shining eyes when he stayed up until midnight balancing the books after a messy audit. "You're the future of this place, Mark. Everything we're building, it's for you." He believed them. He had to. While other teenagers chased dreams of sports, music, or rebellion, Mark chased excellence. He took business courses in community college, read about leadership in his spare time, networked with suppliers, and slowly started to modernize the store's operations. His plans for expansion, renovations, and online sales were already drawn out meticulously in worn notebooks stacked in his room. He didn't mind the sacrifices, not missing out on parties, not staying late to mop the floors, not even putting off his own dream of travel, because it wasn't just a store, it was a promise. It was the symbol of everything he had poured himself into. And then came Aaron. Mark loved his younger brother back when Aaron was just a little kid trailing after him in the aisles. But somewhere along the way, Aaron had turned careless, entitled. He skipped classes, crashed cars, switched majors 3 times without graduating. While Mark was handling quarterly reports, Aaron was partying in Vegas. While Mark was mediating supplier contracts, Aaron was racking up credit card debt their parents secretly paid off. Still, Mark didn't worry too much. Surely his parents could see the difference. Surely they knew who had put in the work. The betrayal wasn't dramatic at first, it wasn't even announced. It slipped out one evening during a casual family dinner. Like a knife slipped between ribs. Mark barely registered his mother's words at first. She was chatting about how Aaron had a real knack for the new marketing ideas and how he'll be doing great things for the store soon. Mark smiled politely, nodded, until his father chimed in. "We've decided to sign the business over to Aaron now, give him a head start." The room spun. For a moment, Mark actually thought it was a joke, some ill-timed attempt at humor. He laughed, a short, incredulous bark. Then he looked at their faces, their very serious faces. You did what?" Mark said, voice strangled, almost unfamiliar to his own ears. His mother reached across the table as if smoothing a tablecloth. "Oh, don't make this about you. You'll still have a place. Aaron just needs a little more, security to grow into it." Aaron leaned back in his chair, looking pleased, sipping his soda like it was nothing. Mark pushed his chair back roughly. It scraped against the tile floor with a screech. "You signed over the business. To him? Without even telling me?" His voice cracked with disbelief, then hardened into anger. His father's eyes narrowed. "Aaron needs this chance. He's younger. We're thinking about the family's long-term future." Mark could feel it. The years of sweat, sacrifice, loyalty burning away inside him, turning to ash. All those promises, all the years I put in, just thrown away like nothing. He turned to Aaron, whose smug smile made Mark's hands curl into fists. "And you? You're okay with this? You think you deserve it?" Aaron shrugged, unapologetic. "Maybe you shouldn't have spent all your time being the perfect son. Maybe you should have been the favorite." The blow hit harder than any physical punch. Mark turned back to his parents, searching their faces for something, regret, apology, second thoughts. He found none. Just a cold, patronizing kind of pity, like he was a stubborn child refusing to see reason. Without another word, he left. He didn't take his jacket, he didn't take his dessert, he didn't take the picture-perfect version of his family he had carried in his heart for so long. That night, Mark packed up the last few things he had left at his parents' house, old ledgers, a few family photos, a box of business plans he had once hoped to show them. He wrote no note, made no goodbye call. He simply cut them off, a clean break, a necessary one. Because if blood could so easily turn to betrayal, then Mark realized he owed them nothing more. For the first time in his life, Mark was free, and utterly, devastatingly alone. But somewhere deep inside, past the searing pain, a new resolve was forming. "This isn't the end of my story, it's the beginning of theirs." Mark didn't answer the first call, or the second, or the third. When he saw his mother's name flash on his screen after nearly 6 months of silence, he simply pressed ignore. He didn't need to hear the excuses, the backpedaling, the sweetened poison of their regret. He had built a new life, leaner, quieter, and he wasn't about to let them drag him back into the wreckage they had chosen over him. But desperation has a way of making people persistent. After the 5th voicemail and 2 days after Aaron himself showed up banging on the door of Mark's tiny, tidy apartment, Mark finally agreed to meet, more out of grim curiosity than anything else. He chose the diner 2 towns over, neutral ground, no memories lingering in the booths, no ghosts. They were already waiting when he arrived. His mother looked tired, thinner somehow. His father's jaw was tight, his hands fidgeting with the sugar packets on the table. Aaron, once cocky, now pale and anxious, stared at the menu as if it held the secrets to saving him. Mark sat down and said nothing, let the silence do the heavy lift. Finally, his mother spoke, her voice brittle. "Mark, we need your help." He raised an eyebrow, leaning back. "Do you?" His tone was light, almost amused, but there was an edge under it, razor sharp. His father cleared his throat, launching into the grim details. Sales were plummeting. Staff turnover was through the roof. Suppliers were cutting them off. Customers were spreading bad reviews. Bills were piling up. The store that had once been a proud neighborhood fixture was now a laughingstock. And Aaron, well, Aaron had no idea how to fix it. "We underestimated the burden," his father admitted, voice grudging. Aaron wasn't ready. Mark tilted his head. "Didn't seem to bother you when you handed him the keys." His mother flinched. Aaron bristled, but said nothing. "We made a mistake," his mother whispered, tears shining in her eyes. "We see that now." Mark felt nothing. No satisfaction, no triumph. Only a hollow, weary sense of inevitability. They weren't here because they loved him. They were here because they had no other choice. "And what exactly do you want from me?" he asked, swirling the coffee in his cup slowly, deliberately. Aaron finally looked up, desperation raw in his face. "We need a cash in expertise. Maybe you could come back, help steady things." He had the gall to add, "We could work together." Mark smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "You want me to fix the mess you made? For free?" His father stiffened. "It's your family business, too." Mark set his cup down with a "Not anymore." The silence that fell was suffocating. His mother reached across the table, her hand trembling slightly. "Please, Mark. Without you, we'll lose everything. The store, the house, our retirement. We need you." Mark stared at her hand, then back at her face. There was a time he would have given anything for this moment. A time when he would have bent over backward at the mere hint of approval. That time was dead and buried. He leaned forward, voice low and steady. "I'll help, but not on your terms." They leaned in eagerly, hopeful. "I will buy the business, outright. Every asset, every debt, full control. You," he'd said, looking pointedly at Aaron, "are out. And you two," turning to his parents, "can stay on, as paid consultants, if I choose. No decision-making power, no interference." His father's face darkened. His mother's hand recoiled. Aaron's chair screeched back as he stood, face red. "You bastard!" Aaron hissed. "After everything, you're going to kick us out like trash?" Mark didn't flinch. "You did that yourselves." His father slammed his fist on the table. "You're acting like a damn vulture." "No," Mark said, calm as ever. "I'm acting like a businessman, something none of you could manage." The arguments exploded then, heated, ugly, wild. Accusations flew across the table like shrapnel. "You're heartless. You're greedy. You're betraying your family." Mark weathered it all with a cold, detached patience, letting them rage, because beneath the fury was fear, and fear meant power. When they finally wore themselves out, red-faced and gasping, he stood. "You have 48 hours to decide. After that, my offer expires." He dropped his card on the table, a final slap of authority. As he walked out of the diner, the afternoon sun hit him full in the face, warm and bright. He didn't look back. They had made their choice long ago. Now, it was his turn. 47 hours later, Mark's phone buzzed. A text, short, clipped, from his father. "We accept." No apology, no acknowledgement of wrongs, just 2 words soaked in defeat. Mark read the message once, then again before deleting it. He didn't need souvenirs of their surrender. The paperwork took 2 days. He hired his own legal team, expensive, sharp, and ruthless, and to draw up the contracts. No loopholes, no sweeteners. Full acquisition, every asset, every debt, total irrevocable control. The meeting to sign the documents took place in a sterile conference room at the law office, not in the family store where so many memories still lingered like smoke. Mark arrived in a sharp navy suit, calm and unhurried. His parents looked smaller somehow, seated side by side like kids called into the principal's office. His mother twisted a handkerchief in her hands. His father stared at them. Aaron wasn't. He had been served notice separately, fired, effective immediately, with a severance package generous enough to keep him from whining in court, but not enough to reward his incompetence. Mark thought about offering a farewell handshake, maybe even a word of thanks, but then he remembered Aaron's smirk at that awful dinner, the smug certainty that he would always be the chosen one. No handshake, no ceremony, just the hard stamp of a signature on paper and a chapter closed. Once the ink was dry, Mark stood. The lawyer handed copies of the agreement to his parents. His father's hand trembled slightly as he took it. Mark looked them both in the eye, and in that moment he felt the weight of every sleepless night, every lonely weekend, every sacrifice he had made. "I will honor the name," Mark said, voice quiet but firm. "But this business, my business now, will be run properly. No more favoritism, no more excuses." His father gave a stiff nod, pride and bitterness warring in his expression. His mother blinked rapidly, lips pressed tight as if holding back tears. Mark paused, then with a clinical kindness he added, "I'm keeping you both on as consultant. Your experience has value, but you will have no decision-making. I will respect your, but I will not be." It was a mercy, and they knew it. He could have discarded them completely, left them adrift. Instead, he offered them a lifeline, but not a rope long enough to hang him. The next morning, Mark walked through the store, his store, before opening hours. It was heartbreaking how far it had fallen, shelves half empty, dust creeping into the corners, the same handwritten, outdated promotions taped crookedly to the windows. A handful of loyal employees were still holding on, exhausted, skeptical, their trust worn thin by months of chaos. Mark gathered them together on the main floor. He didn't give a long speech. He wasn't a man of empty promises. "I'm not Aaron," he said simply. "I'm here to rebuild. If you want to stay, you'll work hard, be honest, and in return you'll be respected, paid fairly, and given a real future." There was silence, then a few hesitant nods, a flicker of hope sparking back into tired eyes. Good enough. It was time to roll up his sleeves and start from scratch. At home that night, Mark sat on his balcony, sipping black coffee, watching the city lights. He thought about Aaron, about his parents, about the years he had wasted trying to earn what should have been freely given. Respect. He didn't feel victorious. He didn't feel vindicated, just free. For the first time, Mark's future was his own to shape. No strings attached, no false promises tying him down. He wasn't chasing approval anymore. He was building something real. And this time, no one would take it away. It took 2 years, countless sleepless nights, and an iron will Mark hadn't known he possessed. But the business was thriving again via new branding, a sleek website, updated inventory systems, staff bonuses tied to performance. Mark poured everything into it, not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of sheer, stubborn pride. Customers who had drifted away returned slowly at first, then in droves. The neighborhood began to buzz again with word of the comeback. "Feels like the old days," some said at the register. Better, Mark thought privately. Aaron's name had been scrubbed from every document, every marketing piece, every memory associated with the store. There was no trace left of his short, disastrous reign, except in the minds of those who had endured it. Mark never mentioned Aaron to the employees. He didn't need to. The store spoke for itself. Family dinners, however, were another story. They resumed, eventually, cautiously, like navigating a minefield. His parents still lived nearby, still clung to the title of consultants, though they were rarely consulted. Mark kept them on the payroll, a small token of mercy, and a silent reminder of the power shift they had once so carelessly thrown away. At first, they treated the gatherings like business meetings in disguise, offering unsolicited advice, subtly probing for influence. Mark listened politely. He never raised his voice, he never argued, but he never yielded either. There was an unspoken agreement now. They could speak, but they no longer decided. That reality hung heavy over every interaction. Aaron was another matter entirely. After the firing, he had vanished, licking his wounds somewhere in another city, chasing one half-baked scheme after another. Word came now and then through old friends or distant relatives. Failed startups, short-lived jobs, a couple of DUI charges. Mark didn't seek him out. When Aaron texted once, a short, drunken apology at 2 a.m., Mark read it, set the phone down, and went back to sleep. Forgiveness, he realized, didn't require reopening old wounds. The hardest part wasn't rebuilding the business. It wasn't cutting off his brother or standing firm against his parents' attempts to manipulate him. It was the loneliness. Because despite everything, despite the betrayal and humiliation, Mark had loved them once, had needed their approval, their pride, their unconditional belief in him. And he had never really gotten it. Not when he saved the store, not when profits tripled, not when the city paper ran a glowing profile calling him the comeback king of Main Street. At family dinners, his parents praised the store's success in vague, hollow terms. "Must be nice," his father would say, raising his glass. "Good thing you stepped in," his mother would add, avoiding his eyes. No real apologies, no heartfelt confessions, just the awkward dance of people who had broken something they didn't know how to fix. Sometimes, late at night, Mark wondered how it could have been different. If they had chosen him first, if Aaron had been a brother instead of a rival, if loyalty had been enough, but regret was a heavy chain and Mark had no desire to carry it any longer. He had built something solid with his own 2 hands, he had reclaimed his future, and he was finally, living a life that was truly his. One night, after locking up the store, Mark stood alone under the flickering street lamp out front. The sign above the door gleamed, polished, modern, proud. Mark Weston and Company, not the old family name. Not a tribute to anyone else's legacy, just his own. He took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air fill his lungs. There were scars, yes. There were regrets that would never fully fade. But there was also something stronger now, something that had taken root deep inside him. A quiet, unshakable certainty. He had been betrayed. He had been abandoned. And still, he had risen. Not because they lifted him up, but because he learned to stand on his own. Years later, Mark sometimes found himself waking before dawn, long before the city stirred, the streets outside his window still cloaked in darkness. He would sit at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee cooling in his hands, staring into the soft gloom, thinking. Not about profits or sales reports or supplier contracts, not even about the milestones he had achieved, the expansion into 2 new locations, the awards, the community honors. No, in those early quiet hours he thought about them, his parents, Aaron, the life he had left behind to build the one he lived now. Time had softened something. The sharp stabbing pain of betrayal had dulled to a heavy ache, still there, but buried beneath busy life. He still saw his parents occasionally, holiday dinners, milestone birthdays, the awkward, obligatory celebrations that families cobble together, even when there are fissures running silently on the floor beneath. There was a kind of strained politeness between them. His mother, once so quick to scold and so slow to praise, had grown quieter with age. She looked at him sometimes with an expression Mark couldn't quite decipher. Regret, maybe, or fear, or simply loss. His father, proud but worn down by the years, sometimes launched into stories about the old days at the store, trying to rewrite history with every nostalgic anecdote. Mark let him. There was no point reopening old wounds. He knew now that some apologies would never come, not because they weren't owed, but because some people simply couldn't give them. Aaron remained a ghost at the edges of Mark's life. Word was that he had settled into a string of low-level jobs in another state. He had married briefly and divorced just as quickly. There were rumors of more failed ventures and other bankruptcy. Occasionally, a letter would arrive, usually around Christmas, a few hastily scrawled lines on a cheap card. Mark never responded. He wasn't angry anymore, just indifferent. He had fought his battles, buried his dead dreams, and moved on. Some wounds he had learned you don't heal by reopening them, you heal by letting them scar over, ugly but whole. The business, his business, continued to flourish. Employees stayed for years now, proud to work for a man who respected their efforts and rewarded their loyalty. The community saw the store not just as a place to shop, but as a symbol of resilience, of something old and true, surviving in a world that seemed increasingly disposable. Mark took quiet pride in that. He mentored younger entrepreneurs, sponsored local charities, gave scholarships to kids who reminded him of himself, full of potential, aching for a chance. If he couldn't rewrite the past, he could at least shape a better future for someone else. Sometimes, when he walked through the store late at night, he would catch his reflection in the front windows. He didn't look much like the eager young man who once believed that loyalty alone would win the day. There were lines now around his eyes, streaks of silver at his temples, but there was also a steadiness in his gaze, a hard-won wisdom. He had learned through bitter trial that love without respect is hollow, that family, like anything else, must be built on trust, not entitlement, that the things you inherit are not always blessings. Sometimes they are burdens you must reshape with your own hands, and he had learned the most important lesson of all, that the life you build for yourself, piece by painful piece, is infinitely more precious than anything simply handed to you. One evening, after closing up, Mark walked down the old block where he had spent so many restless teenage years dreaming of escape. The town had changed, but some things remained. The cracked sidewalks, the little park with the broken swings, the mural on the brick wall, faded now, but still defiant. Strength is built, not given. He smiled at that. Maybe he thought life had been fairer to him than he realized. It had forced him to become something stronger than the boy who once begged for scraps of affection. It had stripped away illusions and left him with the one thing that mattered, himself, solid, unbreakable, free. And as the night wind stirred the leaves around his feet, Mark Weston, son, brother, businessman, survivor, turned toward home, toward the life he had built with blood, sweat, and hard, unyielding love, toward the only future that had ever truly been his.